welcome to another Scots Whay podcast. And today I'm joined by the writer MJ Nicholls. Hello there.
Hello there.
And I was thinking about how I'd introduce you, and I was going to say you write comic literary novels, but then I thought, do you like literary comic novels? Well, what would you say? What kind of novels do you write? Is it an easy opener?
I think comic novels is a good one, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And then people would say, oh, is it like graphic novels? And then I'd say, no, comedic.
Yes.
So comedic, but if you want fewer syllables, then comic's grand.
Just a few of them that you've written. We were talking about House of Writers, which we've reviewed inside, and the 1002nd book to read before you. The 1002nd books. Is that the right way of saying it?
No, just book.
Yeah. To read before you die. The Quiddity of Delusion, and the one we're going to begin discussing is Scotland Before the Bomb. Explain a little bit about Scotland Before the Bomb.
Okay, well, it's set in quite way in the future, with a version of me as an editor looking back over Scotland, a fictitious Scotland, after a fictitious indie ref in 2014 that was successful. And then from there, each of the counties of Scotland broke down into separate countries over a 50-year span. And before Scotland was destroyed in a missile strike from Luxembourg.
Oh, that's right. Yes, it was Luxembourg.
So that's Luxembourg, yeah. So it's looking back on that from 100 years in the future of a fictitious Scotland that turns into a sort of micro dystopian country of little countries.
So it's this idea that there's an independence referendum which is successful, and Scotland in general seems to become more and more attracted to the idea of referendum or in greater independence.
Yeah, it becomes just sort of it's Dundee actually. The MSP for Dundee really wants Dundee to be independent. He kickstarts the whole thing. This is a very minor plot point. It's all summarised in the introduction to the book. But yeah, so the MP for Dundee, whoever that is now, wants Dundee to be independent, and then the rest of the counties get angry, and it spirals from there. So
it's a really interesting form as well as the content of it, because each of the chapters are each of the counties. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and they have all got not just different tales to tell, but something quite radically ways of telling them. So what was the inspiration behind that?
I actually started off, I had a lot of separate dystopian stories I'd written, and I thought I would like to maybe do a collection of stories. So then I found a way to turn it into more of an interesting book conceptually by bringing in the counties and working in different kind of regional elements and
but
ideas.
Some of them do seem very. Specifically, we won't be able to touch on them all, but for instance, I'll just touch on some of my favourites. You've got Edinburgh, where the Edinburgh Festival becomes a year long. It never ends. The sun never sets on the Edinburgh Festival.
Yeah, that's people in the festival so angry about not making a profit that they refuse to leave Edinburgh until they make a profit. So they just stay there indefinitely because they're never going to turn a profit. So it was a funny idea. Just brought on by frustration at living in Edinburgh. And being one of the few people actually, well, probably one of the people in the majority of the residents who dislike the festival. But so that was a good section.
It's very funny as the whole book is. I'm almost dying to kind of go into greater detail, but I don't want to kind of spoil things for people. You've also got in Lothian. There's so many delivery drones around there that the sky is black with delivery drones. You can't. That again, very. I think for anyone who knows that part of the world, site specific. So was it a case of? I'm really fascinated in how you decided to go through this. You said you had this collection of stories, but did they each have a place? Did you have a place in mind for the stories?
I think it was just sort of random. Sometimes some places I would have the story idea and think, what's the best county? Somewhere like the Lothians, where there are lots of warehouses and places that it would fit that landscape. The kind of slightly sinister, farmland and industrial intersections of places like Livingston and so. So there are some places that fit the setting and the story. Some places were just chosen randomly because I had to fill the counties up with stories. So yeah, it's a mixture. Yeah.
So where did the original idea of doing all these dystopian stories come from? Were they always going to be collected in a book, or were they just you'd written one and then something else? Because they're all very off the time, they're current concerns and sometimes obsessions, that are happening there.
I think, it was a sort of mixture of different. I had a few stories that were topical and a couple that were more playful in terms of form and that didn't reference anything topical. So I just tried to find a way to bring them together into a kind of novel and stories form, and breaking it down in terms of county was good. It gave me a number of chapters. It gave me a kind of a structure for it. So I just pulled this sort of incoherent bunch of stories together, really, in terms of design.
And you mentioned that the writer and editor of the book is one M.J. Nicholls, which is sort of a typical's the wrong word, but it kind of almost defines what you do. You like to play with what's going on the page and with kind of expectations of the reader. Is that right?
I do.
Yeah. So could you go into a little bit more? Why is that something that you enjoy?
Well, it's just something I enjoy as a reader. I don't really know how many readers enjoy, because sort of thing. It's difficult to gauge whether people find it self-referential and that kind of thing. But I'm really selfish as a writer. I just write, for my own enjoyment and hope some people like it, which is, I guess, what most people do. But I don't have any kind of sense of, let's make this a bit more commercial. Let's tweak this. Well, I suppose in this book I did, because I put in the references to the independence referendum. So there's a little nod to that.
Were you wary about
that? A little bit. Part of me thought, if I put this in, am I just using this cynically to kind of drop interest, like topical interest, given that a lot of books that are popular tend to be topical, based on topical issues. Mm-hmm. So part of me cynically thought, crowbarring that in would be quite good for this book in terms of people wanting to read it. But then as the content came out, it was less obvious that people would stick with it.
Because I when you'd spoken about what it was going to be like, when I first read it. I think initially you think, this is going to be a big commentary on independence, and you think, well, no, it's not really. The idea of breaking away or smaller government or anything like that, you could read that into it if you wanted to. But actually, as you say, it's more each chapter is got a different, not even target, but just a different subject or a way of doing it. Are there favourites of your own that you look back and think I really enjoyed? Because some of them are even concrete poetry. It's a real mix of everything, isn't it?
It's a grab bag. No, I did like the concrete poetry section, which is the Orkney Isles.
Yeah.
Which is a couple of pages of a kind of very abstract sketch versus dystopia, where you've got a border around the page with sort of cat noises like purr, meow, and then inside these little phrases that sum up some kind of cat takeover of Orkney. So there's some of the dystopias are kind of suggestive and maybe nonsensical at first, and then as you read on. So yeah, that was fun doing that kind of thing. Yeah. It's just finding ways to come up with new kind of grim visions of these different countries was a lot of fun.
And as a writer, is it a way of keeping yourself interested?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think I struggle with just writing A to B prose, and I enjoy it occasionally, but over the last few years I've become quite impatient and frustrated. So it's good to write in shorter bursts.
But you never considered this as a book of short stories as such. You always wanted to come together as the idea of a novel.
I think so. Yeah, I guess it's fine as a novel in stories, if you like. I mean, it's I think because it's the concept is kind of tied together sufficiently, all the stories are linked to a kind of bigger narrative, then it kind of qualifies as a novel. But I have a very loose definition of novel.
Well, I mean, a novel you could say is just a collection of
Exactly,
of
yeah.
individual stories with a line through them.
Yeah, exactly. So
And I'm very interested with the final. I think I'm right. It's the final one. It's Glasgow and Renfrew, which I think is the longest as well. Is it?
yeah, it's about 6,000 words. It's long.
And again, it's a writer who seems very familiar. And I found notebooks, and could you explain, without giving the game away, a little bit about the Glasgow and Renfrew pages?
Well, that one it's called Textual Dysfunction, and it's a kind of rolling feed of thoughts from a sort of dysfunctional or frustrated writer trying to write a book, and he ends up producing this non-book of thoughts about writing a book. So it kind of chronicles a sort of breakdown, sort of artistic breakdown, and maybe personal breakdown as well. That section is a bit personal, obviously, but it's a mixture of sort of personal reflections on frustrations and fictitious,
Which
thinking.
makes me ask the question. I think about the question about how you decided to order your chapters. Was that a difficult thing to do?
No, I just tried to break up some of the sections so I wouldn't have two stories, kind of two similar length stories. So just in terms of just the kind of keeping the form interesting for the reader, making sure there was a difference between each section, and then the last section, there is an appendix as well, but the final chapter is a good one to end on because it's more sort of challenging, I think, to grapple with. It
does have I mean, they're all very different, to be fair, but it does have a different feel, I think, to the rest of the book. I think we should also touch on the day that poor old Nicholls Parsons has passed on.
Oh, of course, yeah.
That he appears in Braemar to play a non-stop game of Just a Minute.
That's right, yeah.
Which is one of my favourite chapters. I mean, I don't want to go down the question of where do you get your crazy ideas, but how, did you come up with some of these and go, yeah, that's really... this entertains me.
It does, yeah. Well, I was listening to Just a Minute quite a lot before bed for a long time.
Yeah.
Just as a kind of...
It's
like relaxation. It's a great show. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of timeless because it doesn't do with topical subjects mainly. Sometimes it does, but it's. And I was just a big fan. I thought it'd be funny to. Just at the time, I was in this sort of Just a Minute headspace, and I wanted to put something down about that. In that story, the inhabitants of Braemar, is it?
Braemar, it's where my brother lives. Just
like
it.
All right.
Really, yeah.
See if I just a minute. When they're all they're kind of randomly chosen from this to speak without hesitation or potential deviation for a minute, and then the panel kind of sit high or looking down upon them, buzzing in.
Yeah, it becomes almost a judgment.
So it's kind of different to Just a Minute in the sense they're just buzzing in on people rather than themselves. So Paul Merton's buzzing in on a farmer in Braemar or a shop owner and things, and then they're penalised. So it's kind of a sadistic, just about with sadistic consequences.
Kangaroo Court or something like that. Yeah. And another name to note, who's unfortunately no longer with us, is in your introduction you have Alistair Gray as one of the earlier First Ministers of Scotland.
That's right, yeah.
Which makes me think about who your influences are. You say you like reading writers or books which are comedic and playful and maybe don't take you to places that you might expect. So who are your influences in that way?
Well, I was thinking about Alistair Gray when I was writing this book. I think it's certainly Alistair Gray. I've loved reading him, and in terms of broader influences, I'd say Gilbert Sorrentino is a huge influence. He's an American postmodernist who wrote a really wide-ranging sort of span of books over 50 years. Famously Mulligan's Stew, which is a big literary satire.
Right.
One of the funniest literary satires. It's a great novel which parodies kind of dime store mystery novels, cheap kind of overwrought, melodramatic kind of prose of around the sort of 50s, 60s sort of time that was coming out. So it's a very specific form of parody, and it's great. And I was just in awe of that author for a long time.
Right.
I think House of Writers is more of a kind of homage to Sorrentino, whereas I had Gray in mind with this in terms of the way he sometimes structures his books.
Yeah.
With sort of spurious editors and things, and he couples together or he pulls together kind of different stories into his books, and in a way that's quite satisfying.
And on the page, it often looks very different. I mean, there's the way that the actual paragraphs are structured, or the way that sometimes they break from in the normal form. And things
exactly. Like in the middle of 1982 Janine, where it's this typographical explosion. And what else? Obviously, in Lanark, he's got the two columns. So, typographically, this one was more. He was kind of at the back of my mind. Maybe someone like Raymond Federman. Have you heard of him? No, So he was a French-American novelist who he escaped the Holocaust and came to America,
right?
And then spent his time sort of retelling a story of when he lost his parents in the Holocaust, and he used really innovative typography to do it. He was at the back of my mind as well, but yeah. So those are two I really like, and there's lots more.
Talking about America, it's interesting that you are published by an American publisher, Saki Meniscus Press.
Yeah.
So how did that come about?
I think I reviewed one of their books. I gave a negative review to one of the books, and the editor contacted me. Was kind of peeved, and then we got into a conversation. And then it turns out we had a lot in common in terms of literary interests.
So this was the editor, not the writer?
This was the editor, yes.
Right, okay.
So I got in touch with the editor of that press, Jacob Smolian, and I said, I've got this manuscript, and he read it, and that was it. He's been a great editor, good supported my work. It's really, so it's been... Sorry.
I know, and how have you felt in terms of being on an American press? Because I guess there may be pros and negatives to it, and how do you feel about it?
Well, it's, in a sense, it's a really great publisher. But in terms of how the books are distributed, it's a little more ramshackle because I do a lot of that myself in terms of receiving copies and then trying to place them in libraries and bookshops and whatnot, get attention for them. But I don't. In terms of promoting yourself or distributing books, the internet kind of it's helped in the sense of don't know really. It's a good question.
Well, I guess I'm thinking
it
doesn't always happen here. There are people I know on UK and Scottish publishers who feel that they've not maybe had the promotion or what they were promised maybe hasn't happened. And I'm just wondering as well, if you're on an American press, is it easier to get your books into American shops?
Well,
things like that?
I think so, yeah. It's easier to have books be distributed in America. So they're based in New Jersey, so they can do local promotion and getting books into libraries and bookshops in America.
Because that's still a dream for UK publishers, is to get a title into America.
That's true. So that's an advantage to that, yeah. But it's difficult to gauge because it's, as with most small presses, the book's just out there, and then you come to the next one, and then
you've got to work for
you just go on. You just publishing for the joy of it, really.
But I mean, I think you, in some ways, that might suit you because I feel you write for the joy of it.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, talking about, if we go back to House of Writers, which is a couple of years, 3 years.
3 years ago.
Yeah. That book itself, I thought there's no doubt it's a book about writers and writing. And you even have many real life writers appearing in it, which is I think quite a brave thing to do. But 3 years on, what do you think about it now when you look back to it?
I really like it. I'm quite happy with it. I think it's my favourite of my book so far.
That's interesting.
Because it was a way of distilling all my pent up angst about being a writer. Yeah. And that was quite important for me to move on, because I'd become so kind of frustrated and angry about trying to be a writer in a kind of indifferent sort of marketplace to the stuff I write anyway.
Yes.
So it was a kind of emotionally it was a release and in a fun way. So
it is. It's a great fun book, but there's definitely huge amounts of frustration and anger, I would say, and even a bit of contempt. But the idea, what did you want to say about this idea of being a writer? Was it something that, I get the feeling this, and along with the 1002nd book, To Read Before You Die, you're actually looking at the whole business of writing and publishing and all of that, and critiquing it, I suppose.
I think so, yeah. I think I was trying to get a kind of handle on it, because as somebody who's not involved in... Well, I did help run a small publisher for a while, but I was not involved in kind of bigger publishing world. I couldn't really understand, or I didn't really like having to get to terms with like being an author. I think I was pulling against it. Yeah. I wanted to just publish books and kind of anonymously. So I think it was just a way of coming to terms with being a writer.
It's a very it's a very powerful way of doing that. Yeah. You know, I love the idea, instead of internalising this, you say, no, I'm going to turn all this into a book, and it's clear. But with House of Writers, let's concentrate on that, which is about, as I say, being a writer. It's clear to me that it's something that you really love, but you've got all of this the business around, literally a business around it, because they end up that there is the house, which on each floor there are the different writers and the different things, and this idea of breaking things down into categories, and even my first question, you know, how would you consider yourself as a writer? Probably is one that you're not.
I think you have to have categories to an extent. Yeah. So it's only when books are so categorized that they're kind of homogenous that it's.
Is that worrying. Part of the frustration, that you understand the need for all this stuff, but it still don't mean that you're happy with it?
I think so. Yeah. I'm a bit more kind of calm about it now, having written those books. 1002 is a little bit more accepting, although there is a section where I'm having a go at book marketing and things. You know?
Yeah, I do think in that book in particular, it's about reading and obsessional reading, and the joy of reading books. And I think sometimes there's so much other stuff going on, and it's not just in publishing, it's in lots of other areas as well, but there's so much about sharing which book, this is from a reader's point of view, sharing which book you're reading, and reviewing which book you're reading, because there's so many reviewers out there. We're all a kind of critic now, if you like, because of online. Discussing other aspects of it, going to book signings or book readings, listening to podcasts like this, all things which actually take you away from, there's only so much time of reading the book, which is kind of what it's about. Yeah,
that's true, and I think a lot of people like going to author readings and events rather than reading, which is strange. This is why I was very reluctant to kind of be an author, like a public author, because I wanted people just to read the book. Then obviously you have to promote it, and so it's a kind of an avoidable problem.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I'm presuming most writers are also avid readers. That's why you would want to do it in the first place. But maybe not always the case. But from folk who are just readers, there is this desire, I think, to kind of get a bit more of the writer sometimes. I don't really understand it myself, but there is this thing about... I say I don't understand it. I do understand it. I'm asking about it now. But to learn a bit more about why your favourite books have been written. But then part of me also thinks, well, it's in the book. It's a bit like listening to a song or anything. You take what you want from it yourself. Yeah,
I think so. And it's people's demand for kind of more content and more stuff. Because if you finished a great book, you can go back and read the other books. Or if they've just written one book, then what else do you do? You know, I just move on to another author. But people want to kind of fixate on authors, or they have authors they really love and they don't explore as much as other people, and so maybe people need to be a bit more ambitious. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think there is something about all of the events and about all of the industry, for what of time, that stops people engaging with the book sometimes. Not always. There are lots of people that are prolific readers who do all that stuff and as well. But the simple fact about sitting or finding time, because time is precious, to sit and just spend an hour or two with a book, it can be lost.
I think also if you're an author like Will Self and you're very kind of charismatic and funny, people like seeing you talk. So you're just entertaining, and the way they go and see a stand-up comedian, it's a spectacle. And so they might not want to sort of sit through his 3 massive modernist novels, because that's quite difficult. Whereas this funny guy,
Yeah, well, I found that with Clive James, who I love as a writer. From early reading his memoirs, reading collections of his television reviews, and just this is amazing. Before I'd ever heard him or anything like that, and then he became, as you say, almost like an after-dinner speaker and entertainer and all of that. And he was very, very good at that. He had his own chat show and his own travelogues and all of that. Maybe for some people that's the aim. But I don't think he was ever better than when he was a writer, and probably the same.
He is a great writer. I was thinking that because I read his big book of essays, Cultural Amnesia, a couple of years ago. I was kind of really impressed because I'd seen him as this cuddly TV host, a travelogue presenter, and so I think he maybe undermined himself as a writer by hosting all those shows, and
absolutely.
Anyway, he wrote poetry before he died as well.
And even he was the television reviewer on The Observer in maybe as far back as the 70s, but certainly in the 80s. And there's some of the funniest bits of writing, most comedic bits of writing. Even if you don't remember the programmes, they just genuinely laugh out loud funny.
I think it'd be interesting because you think of, there's not that kind of TV reviewing calibre today. It's quite shorter things online, or maybe there are sort of longer pieces in the newspapers and things, but you wouldn't get an essay per se on.
Yeah.
Charlie Brooker used to do that. He would make these reviews into an art form, kind of scathing kind of art form.
Yeah, there's not a lot of reviewers like that. I wonder. No. I was thinking about this the other day. I'm hoping that since a lot of the short stuff is now headline based or clickbait, that there will be increasingly a space for longer pieces. There is an online, I think it's just online, I can get the app for it and all that stuff, called The Athletic, and it's they've taken some of the best sports writers from the major papers, and they're paying them more money, and it's to do long form essays and proper criticism and all that. I don't know where it's going now.
I think
sorry, here you go.
I was just going to say it's more common in America, isn't it, than the UK, the long form essay format.
And we've talked a little bit about the comedy side of things, the comedies and all that, but the comedic side of things, and the will to make people laugh. Was that something you always wanted to do in your writing?
I think so. Yeah, definitely. It's just a way of, it's just a sort of stylistic thing that I was unable to write seriously, or I couldn't engage myself seriously when I was writing. I was trying to write something, or just when I started writing, it was a way of helping me to keep myself amused when I was a student or something. It was so, and I was obviously a big comedy fan growing up, and all that stuff. So yeah.
Were you wary of coming across as if you're taking yourself too seriously, so the comedy punctures? Because I think you take the writing very seriously indeed. I don't think you could do otherwise.
I think I'm trying to move towards a little bit more seriousness, but without becoming kind of, without losing any humour. So there's a way of, I think, maybe inching towards a style that's slightly less. I'm really wary of words like wacky and I'm trying to move away from.
I think you should be, because they're not. I mean, my understanding of wacky is just zany anything like that.
Crazy. So certainly, bits of 1002 get a bit zany, and I'm trying to move away from that because I enjoy writing it, but it's a little bit lazy for me because it's sort of autopilot. Whereas I'm more interested in being, satirical or kind of droll as a writer than broadly kind of knockabout
slapstick.
Yeah.
I think droll's a very good way of describing a lot of them. And I said at the beginning, are they comic literary novels or literary comic novels? And you said comic, leaving out the literary, but they are literary because they are dealing with literature in that way. They're dealing with the writing and not just the business of publishing or the business of writing, but actually the books themselves and the writers themselves.
Yes.
So yes, there's no question there at all. I guess my question is, are you wary of putting that literary label on them?
No, not really. It's fine. I think it's maybe I'm just trying to be humble by saying, "Oh, they're not that literary," or trying to get people to read them. But it's kind of it's off-putting, two off-putting things: literary and comic.
Yeah,
I'm out.
I guess that's maybe true. It's a shame if that's the case, but maybe that's true.
I think there's lots of great literary comic writers around, and I people like Steve Toltz, who wrote Quicksand. It's a really great novel, and I think they don't tend to get prizes or awards or get recognition. Comic novels or literary comic novels, they kind of just because they're comic, they're seen as
somehow.
Which is strange. There's a separate kind of comic prizes, but I can't think of when the last time a comic novel won the Booker, apart from Howard Jacobson's 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's a while ago, isn't it? Yeah. Howard Jacobson's a good comparison who I hadn't thought of, actually.
Yeah, he's quite good. Yeah.
Are there writers, other writers that maybe we weren't heard of that you think, you should really check them out if you like my books?
No.
Just my books.
Well, the ones I mentioned, Sorrentino, these are all older writers. Contemporaries, I can't think of people, which sounds a bit arrogant, but people writing similar.
Yeah, no, it doesn't tell.
There's a lot of people in the Saggy Meniscus catalogue.
Yeah.
There's a lot of similar writers. They're mainly American, but Stephen Moles is a London-based novelist. He's slightly similar. And then he's metafictional, and he's very interested in form and language. I'll give a shout out to Lucy Almond's new book,
right?
Because which Ducks Newburyport, which is 1,000 page.
Yes. Now we spoke about this on our books podcast at the end of last year.
Yeah, I've been reading her for a while, and she's before this came out. So I was also a fan of her early comic novels, which are quite similar. They're really kind of formally playful and anarchic, and they've got a sort of ranting edge to them,
right?
Which is a lot of fun. But it's good that book's getting a lot of attention because it's a great novel. It's in the form of sort of a huge list, punctuated with little descriptive sections of a lioness.
So, having written in all these different, because I maybe hadn't said that all of the books I've read of yours have all got that aspect to them, that there are breakaways from any kind of normal story being told. You often do that, whether it's jumping around in time or literally moving on the page or anything like that. Is that something you want to explore more in terms of being experimental, or do you think, well, I've kind of done that?
I've finished the other two books as a trilogy of books.
Yeah.
The other two I've finished up, which the second one is basically similar to the first one in terms of its by county.
Yeah. It's
a similar cycle of stories with a different setup. But
so this is the second book, to Scotland.
Scotland for the Bomb, yeah. It's called Trimming England. So the third one though is a little bit different in that it's told in it's like the last section of Scotland for the Bomb. It's got short chapters, short little sections broken up by place. Hard to describe actually, but it's I think that's the end of my kind of experiments for the moment.
Okay.
I'm actually rewriting an old book.
Okay.
In a more straightforward way at the moment. It's going quite well.
Good.
Which is quite surprising. I'm just enjoying writing kind of normal prose at the moment, which is
So Scotland for the Bomb, did you always know this was going to be part of a trilogy at the beginning, or something larger?
No, I had a lot of material that fit the bill for a second book. I thought this would be a good idea to do another book in this vein. And then I thought, might as well finish it and write a third one.
Right.
England, Scotland, and then I finish off with Wales.
Okay.
And keeping it on the mainland.
Right.
No Northern Irish book. So the third one is because I've just written it. Obviously, I like it the best. So.
Is there are there dates for these to come out?
I think I was talking Trimming England might be out this year. I was talking to the publisher about that, so that may be out this year.
Excellent.
The other one, I'm probably still going to tinker with a bit because it's just keep let it simmer for a while.
So how is your kind of average? If there's such a thing as an average writing day for you, is there such a?
No, not really. I haven't written for a while. I had a break for about a couple of months,
right?
Just to have a breather and not get too. If I'm not writing, I'm coming up with some new idea. I'd get a little bit restless.
Yes.
But then at the same time, I'd push myself to come up with things. And I wouldn't work, so I had a breather.
So is that those kind of self-enforced, if you like, breaks? Do you find that these are important?
I think they are very important, yeah, because otherwise you're just constantly pushing yourself to write something, and you end up writing the same thing.
Yes.
You're not letting your brain do some of the work in the background, and you're not, thinking about revisiting old stuff or, what have you. So, it's just I found that an old manuscript I'd written when I was a lot younger. Mm-hmm. I always wanted to rewrite it.
Excellent.
But I thought it's so terrible that I was sort of opened it and went, no, I can't possibly do anything with this. It's awful. So the challenge is to try and make it good.
So was it something that you always knew you were going to write, but you maybe wrote it before you had the experience?
I think so. Yeah. I always wanted to rewrite it basically, and I was so dispirited when I returned to it. So I couldn't find a way of making it, taking the ideas I'd had and making it good. So that's a quite a good new challenge for me. I think it's a new thing. It's also a way to lifts the burden of coming up with the plot line and stories, because they're already there, and they're fine. So I'm just focusing entirely on the quality of the prose, and not on the characters and structure and whatnot.
Can you remember when you decided that this is what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a writer. Was it like, were you very young? Or?
I was 2. Yeah. I was in the womb and I tapped on my mother's chest.
To read this out.
Like, write it down. I think it's about 15. I got a typewriter,
right?
Which is quite odd for 15 years. I was 15, but I got a typewriter and I wrote a lot of, little surreal novellas. So probably 15 is exact age.
Exact age with your date, old school typewriter.
Yeah, old school
Oh, excellent.
It was. I mean, most people had a computer at that time.
Yeah,
but I didn't. And I got it a couple of years later. But I think having a typewriter is quite good because it focuses you to not make as many mistakes.
Yes.
And spend a bit more time.
I was discussing this with someone just recently. Exactly that. How the ability now to take out full sentences or move paragraphs around, it doesn't make people lazy, but the concentration that you maybe need to get it right, if not first time, almost near first time, is kind of lost in that way.
I think so, but then
the physicality of it as well.
The loud clanking of the typewriter, yeah. I think that. But then when I write by hand, it's usually awful, and I need that. I need to go to the computer and tinker.
Right.
So it's lost to me doing that now.
The reason I ask about when the age that you thought, no, I want to be a writer, is I was doing one of these with David Keenan, and he said that he always knew from a young age that he was going to write about Airdrie when he was older, because I think partly because Airdrie had this reputation of not being the experience that he had of it as a child. So I just wondered if and I read from a very young age, but I don't think I've ever thought, I'm going to be a writer.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of it maybe is entwined with place in a way, wanting to, or coming from somewhere like Airdrie where there's not a huge sort of canon of authors or people writing about it, so it feels quite exciting to you.
Yeah.
Because I'm from Armadale, which is a couple of towns down from Airdrie. And I was more interested in writing about cities, big cities, rather than where I'm from. But I'm still kind of drawn to small towns, which is why there's a lot of little places in Scotland for the bomb, parodies of villages that go awry and things. The madness of a small town is quite an interesting subject.
Well, I mean, then really, going back to where we began in Scotland from the bomb, that is what a lot of it is. It's the madness of small cities or small cities, villages or small places where there is perhaps. At times I thought about Absolutely and the Stonybridge Committee. Do you know what I mean? The comedy show Absolutely.
I don't remember the sketch. But
well, so they did in Absolutely. It was a regular sketch, and there was a committee of people on Stonybridge, and they went to get the Olympics at one time. They tried to bring the Olympics to Stonybridge, and it was like, we have a stone bridge, and you imagine the Absolutely stuff, and they're really worth checking out. But a lot of that times I thought, you can imagine that these huge decisions that affect everyone have come through committee level.
Yeah, it is. I think there is a sort of analogy with Brexit there, because if you look at how the kind of madness has infected small towns in England, has kind of spread like the coronavirus across the whole of the UK. So it's quite it's an interesting subject, and I guess people who are very isolated, have certain views. It's not just views we'd consider backward. It's just certain philosophies of life, or it's more fun to create a kind of deranged narrative in that sort of place because it's just isolated.
And what you've done in your chapters is self-contained them. So there isn't. There maybe is a little of interaction, or there's the history of some interaction between some of the counties, but actually in the whole they're self-contained, and the chapters themselves are self-contained in that way.
It's I suppose a bigger question of people liking their little bubbles of it's the same in any like an apartment building of flat block. People don't talk to each other, and then they become argumentative in meetings about the building. So it's any kind of, you can take that down to that sort of level. I was thinking about, there's a great Dutch director called Alex van Vormerdam, whose films I really like. I've been watching them. He writes about, makes films about these sort of small towns gone slightly mad. There's one called The Northerners. It's really good. Check it out. It's it's just based on this sort of half-built new town by this forest. It's in the weird part of Holland, and just it's sort of in the kind of late 50s.
Right.
So it's sort of like an abandoned, half-built town. People still living there. I thought it was a really funny idea.
Right.
And the people going deranged there because they're so cut off from everything.
Yeah. Well, this idea of isolation, which often happens in kind of science fiction, dystopias, as you say, that people are, for some whatever reason, are cut off from the outside world, and therefore it all kind of falls apart. Inside, it's not like things get better. People become, more. They fall out easier, and there's no escape.
I think that's a subject I'm interested in, because in 2002 the guy goes to live in Orkney. He wants to cut himself off and just read for a year.
Yeah, that's right.
So, which is something I would quite like to do, but then
I got that while reading it. I thought this is maybe a wish.
Yeah, it was. I did think. But then I started to think through the implications of that and how you might go mad. In his case, it all went wrong quite quickly, but it would be cool to try if it got to a place where I was just content with complete isolation. Maybe it's an idea for a non-fiction book. Try to live out that character's life. Go and live the furthest place I can find. A cottage and just
so like one of these challenge non-fiction books.
I'd have to dismantle all my personal relationships. But, it should be okay.
It's a small price.
Yeah, it's a small price to pay for finishing the entire canon of Anthony Burgess.
Well, Mark, I think that's the perfect place to finish, so thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll be back soon with someone completely different. Cheers.